right, guys. If y'all were directing a zombie movie, how would you direct your actors, your zombie actors? What kind of zombie noise would you want them to do? David, actually, no. I'm gonna save you for last. I feel like you've got something. You're just chomping at the bit, like zombies are. Noah, let's start with you.
Well, I prefer something a little more guttural.
Okay.
Have you ever heard a Peruvian marketsman?
No.
All the time.
You just insulted
is that
Peruvians
offensive?
everywhere.
No. Since when does a zombie ever sound like that?
No, wait.
They could lead a metal band pretty easily.
Maybe
if they sounded like
I need to hear it one more time.
So are you saying Peruvians?
Or like those throat singers?
Are you saying
Mongolian?
Mongolian.
That's what you meant.
Do you mean to say that Peruvians can't tell if their people are zombies or not?
I said Peruvian. I meant to say Mongolian. Like the
same
throat
planet.
Singers.
Oh, okay.
Same planet.
They're both foreign.
Arena.
So mine would be
Money.
I would have them money. I would have them tap into their retail jobs, just kind of replicate what they feel like while they're working. And then just, sort of moan a little bit.
So kind of like the Shaun of the Dead zombies.
Yeah. It's like you have a really bad fever, but you have to work retail anyway. That's what it is. Yeah.
They're really lazy. They don't want to be there.
That's very similar to what I was going to go for.
Oh, really?
All right. David.
Personally, I think that a lot of movies do it wrong. They need to really get in touch with their inner pterodactyl. Okay?
Oh, no.
So, all
right, guys,
really think about it.
Earmuffs, people.
All right, I'll do
Earmuffs.
I can't talk. Something like that.
Hey, you kind of sound like my mom.
And I think AJ, you got anything for us?
I don't know. It's funny that David took the dinosaur approach because I almost thought that, well, in World War Z, they were almost like the raptors, even like clacking their teeth and stuff. But
we just needed Sam
how
Neill
terrifying
to
would
come
it
in
be
and
if everyone was like the yip yips from Sesame Street, just going yip 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 yip.
That would be terrifying if you're in a completely dark alley and that's all you heard.
They're here.
Glowing
you get
eyes.
one, it's slowly getting a little louder as it comes closer.
Yep, 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 yep.
Mine would probably be something just like.
So
They just sound kind of
like Chewy.
They sound kind of sad, a little Chewy-ish. My zombies aren't aggressive. They're just kind of like, oh, I guess this is my life.
They're a peaceful folk. Your zombies, they're like the ones that resort back to their normal livelihood of doing the laundry and
Yes.
the stuff like that.
Yeah, similar to Arena's. My zombies are a little more apathetic. They don't even have they don't have any chores in mind. They're just
It seemed to remember one time I was really sick and I kept kind of, like sighing to myself, like, moaning. And then I remember turning to, I don't know if it was my mom or someone, but I said, like, I finally understand why zombies moan, because you kind of like slightly feel a little better if you moan a little bit.
You have to exert that.
They're just imagine a world of zombies in which it's just actually people are just really lazy and it's contagious. So they just like slowly devolve into groans to like
so instead of rage, it's lethargy.
Exactly.
Yeah. I feel like that's a more accurate zombie interpretation.
Yeah,
I mean, they're only angry when they need their food.
No, they're
I know I am.
Yeah.
Eat a Snickers.
All right. Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong or right. I'm Reese, the host of this podcast. That is
David.
And you are
Arena.
And that is
the dude that randomly ignores the people that are being eaten up.
And whose name is
Zombie number 7.
He's
El Jefe.
nameless.
El Jefe. How about you tell me your name?
My name is Noah.
No one will ever know his name.
And then, way over in a distant land, we have...
AJ, over in Hawaii, on an island, escaping all the corona zombies.
Yep.
Yeah, what do you have on your island to help amuse yourself while the zombie plague takes over the rest of the world?
A toilet paper castle.
Toilet paper
So
castle.
you're the one who bought all the toilet paper.
Don't tell anyone. They're going to try and seek you out because apparently that's the most valuable resource right now.
Yeah.
So, this week we are talking about 28 Weeks Later. And judging by our intro, you could tell we couldn't come up with anything creative for this. So we were just like, hey, moan like zombies.
I watched 28 Days, the Sandra Bullock movie.
Oh, yeah, we're also covering that.
Same story, different version.
And I forgot to pull that bit on the last episode. That would have worked a lot better, but...
Oh, I thought this was 50 dates later.
51st dates.
51st dates, yeah.
They just keep forgetting the zombies are there.
That would be horrible.
To wake up every day.
Every day is realizing that the zombie apocalypse has happened.
So yeah, 28 Weeks Later, movie came out in 2007, directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, has not directed much in the way of anything. He had 2 features before this called Intacto and Intruders, which I have not seen, and he's actually slated to direct the latest Disney live-action remake of The Sword and the Stone.
Ooh.
But between 28 Weeks Later and that upcoming remake, he hasn't really done much of anything at all. The movie stars Jeremy Renner, Rose Byrne, Robert Carlyle, Imogen, I think I said that right? Imogen Poots. Yeah, Harold Perrineau, who you'll recognize from Lost, and Catherine McCormick. It's written by Rowan Joffe, Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, E.L. Levine, and Jesus Olmo. So, who knows
There's Idris Elba as well. Big
correctly.
name here.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to mention him. Idris Elba as well, who is a British person but is playing an American in the UK.
Cue the Daniel Craig Laura.
The impression I got from this was people saw 28 Days Later and thought, it's great, but it just needs more American,
The Americans are running the show now.
I actually have a comment in my notes where it's like, America!
America! F yeah.
So on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it or not. So,
it hurt me.
You guys, David, had you seen this movie before?
No, I had not seen this movie before.
Okay, so I'm going to move.
Yeah, I got nothing for you.
Just move on.
It's new.
I'll move right along to our arena here.
I don't remember who I watched this with, but since I watched 28 Days Later with my cousin, I think maybe you and I, Reese, maybe you...
I think I remember watching it with you.
I think I watched it with you.
It's been a while.
Which segues into me.
Since
where
then...
he also watched it with me.
Yeah.
You guys watch movies together a lot.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's a group experience.
Noah gets so offended because he feels like we always forget that we watched movies.
Oh, yeah.
Him.
No, it was there.
But I think that's the first time I watched it. And it had been a while since I had watched the first film, so I had forgotten details about that. I seem to remember I enjoyed it as just a fun zombie film, and since then I had kind of forgotten about the details. So
yeah, so I'm gonna piggyback off of that. We're in the exact same boat. So is Noah. So let's just pass it on over to AJ. Had you seen this movie before this episode?
No, I had not. So
okay. Wow. So
quick round, lightning round.
Yep.
Yeah, couple of newcomers on this one. So y'all want to go ahead and just get into the story?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. During the original outbreak of the rage virus, Don, his wife, Alice, and 4 more survivors hide in a barricaded cottage on the outskirts of London. They hear a terrified boy pounding at their door and let him in. A few minutes later, they discover that the infected have followed the boy. The infected attack and kill most of the survivors, while Don, Alice, and the boy are chased upstairs. Don pleads with Alice to leave the boy, but she refuses. He abandons them as the infected break into their room by escaping out of the window. After watching his wife being dragged out of sight by the infected, he narrowly escapes on a boat piloted by Jacob, who falls in the water and is overcome by the infected. So right off the bat, I like how the director makes us think that it is nighttime.
Yeah.
But then reveals.
I actually had that in my
Yeah,
notes.
I kind of had it. I wrote down reminds me of The Others in the sense that you have no idea what time of day you're in or what's going on at all.
Yeah.
And it's revealed to be daylight when the boy is knocking on the door. But it also led me to another question. I thought these zombies were averse to sunlight.
They were.
No,
I thought they were in the first one.
No, they were out in the sunlight in the first one.
But I remember it being a lot
weren't.
safer to go
Like
out
during
in
the
the sun
daytime,
during the
yeah.
day.
I don't think they were
So-
like vampires where they couldn't be in sunlight, but I think, like you were right, they were averse to it. They weren't really crazy about going out in the daytime.
You could argue that as time went on, the zombies themselves became more desperate
Right.
in their search for food.
They just
because
became more
apparently,
comfortable with the light.
We're
Apparently,
hangry.
they can die of starvation, as was presented in the first one.
It's
So
about half a year.
I think they probably try to attack during the daylight. I don't know. It's weird to try and fixate on anything canon with this series because
it
the
just made
first
me-
was so ambiguous.
As much as I don't like exposition, I do wish I at least knew kind of like how the rules of these zombies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's
Yeah.
I don't know if it's more terrifying to not know the rules or to know
Yeah.
them, but it just kind
Yeah.
of brushed up against what I learned from the first one about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
They
think
just hit you with a
the-
bunch of numbers in the beginning, like this many days, this many days, this
Yeah.
many days. Okay.
Yeah.
The thing I like about zombies is that each brand of zombie is almost a signature of a director who created them because every single one has different qualities. Like
Yeah.
this one is very obvious because incredibly quick turning and they vomit blood all
I was
the
like,
time.
I was like, this situation went sideways real
Yeah,
quick.
I know.
Also,
you often wonder. It happens really quick when they turn into zombies. Where does all that blood come from?
Well, it's
Their
supposed
body.
to.
Well,
It's kind of supposed to
really?
replicate Ebola and things like that. So there's sort of this internal bleeding aspect.
They just
So-
have like a
but it's
blood
really
duct
fast.
like snakes do when
Yeah,
they open
like
their mouth.
just,
It's just
in
like
their
They
throat or their
projectile.
mouth.
They do.
They really do.
It gets in your stomach. They gotta cough it out. Now, the one thing with zombies too in this is, compared to the first one, I feel like they have more intelligence in a way, and they're more aggressive. Like there are a couple times, and we'll get to certain points in the movie where it comes up, but I don't understand the logic of their fighting style. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like tackle them to the ground, spit in their face,
I
and then
honestly think
sometimes
they're-
it's biting,
they
sometimes
hone-
it's bludgeon.
it honestly kind of I think it goes back to the first movie where you had the chimps. They behave like enraged chimps, like especially Robert Carlyle in that
Yeah.
one sequence
Where he
later on.
with the
Which
thumbs.
we'll talk about.
They
Or
have
the
it like
rifle.
just the way he was
Yeah.
beating people is just like
Well, it's like-
Yeah, so you mentioned the intro to 28 Days Later with the monkeys. This intro vastly superior to that one, whereas the first film you kind of already get this idea that it's a little bit campy, and that's partly because of the way it was filmed with digital cameras. But this one, immediately you can tell the production is very
yeah.
different,
It's
much
a-
more cinematic.
I will give
Yeah.
it that. It
Yeah,
definitely
there's-
has a better start.
there's an uptick in visual fidelity for sure.
It's
Yeah.
funny. This to me is kind of the inverse of the first one.
Yeah.
In the first one, the beginning kind of sucked, and then it got really good for me. And then for this one, the beginning was interesting, and then it turned out that it sucked
I
later
feel
on.
like you and I are going to
Turns
actually
out
have
that it
similar
sucks.
opinions.
Well, not only timeline, but also just, points on what is good about it and what's bad about it. They kind of flipped.
Right.
almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Production value notable there. And you were talking about the movement of the zombies. I did appreciate how in this one they kind of imitated the stylistic choice that they did in 28 Days Later, where they
Yeah.
increased the frames per second for the recording to kind of have this stuttered
Right.
slow
right.
motion a little bit. Every time you
Yeah.
saw a zombie, they kind of replicated that over here on the second
Right.
one, even though you got different director, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
So what did y'all think of? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, the run across the lawn, that chase was pretty...
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. The kind of mad dash and boat escape from our boy Don, played by Robert Carlyle, who people now know from Once Upon a Time.
Rumpelstiltskin.
So this guy, like, I'm conflicted on how I feel about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't say how I would act in a similar situation.
right.
That's
I wanna,
exactly what
I
wanna-
actually took a note of that.
Yeah, I want to say that I would be more courageous. And
Sorry, Amber.
but
Here's-
also, from his perspective, it does look like she's been bitten, or at least she's been overwhelmed.
Or there's
and-
no
like,
there's
you
no
can't save her.
chance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Here's
and maybe
the
he's
thing.
thinking. I was thinking maybe he's thinking like maybe if I survive this, I can at least be there for the kids.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's too late for her. But also he is. I would say like a bit cowardly.
Which is interesting because in Once Upon a Time, that's kind of his character's problem.
Yeah.
Being cowardly.
Yeah.
I think that they try to set him up as a villain almost by doing this, and I think they failed.
I don't know
honestly
about-
think
I don't
failed.
think they were trying to
think
make
he's a
him
villain.
Not a villain,
Definitely-
but they make you dislike him. That is
Yeah.
the goal of this whole scene, is to make you go, he's a coward. I, don't like
I
him.
think they want you to feel conflicted towards
What are you
him.
saying?
I think they want you to have
AJ?
that. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
AJ was trying
I
to-
do think they definitely cast that question mark shadow over his character early on. Mm-hmm. Here's what kind of got me, though, is this intro scene set up this group of survivors who I kind of immediately got the feeling, oh, these are veterans. They've been through the ringer. They've kind of got this system down. That's how they've survived this long. And then immediately they all just like break protocol and, get, narrowed down to
Yeah.
one person.
It's always the kid. It's always
Well,
the
it
kid.
wasn't the kid
kind
that
of-
time.
That was just frustrating.
Well-
It's like,
Oh,
how
well.
do these people obviously know better to make it this far, and then suddenly that just all goes out the window?
See, the thing is, it would have been fine if it wasn't the compromised female, like, waiting out for her boyfriend or whoever it was.
And I'm wondering if that's the first kid that's come knocking on their door, where it's like, oh, it's a kid.
It's a
Yeah,
kid.
yeah.
We gotta save him.
Like,
yeah,
I don't
it
know.
probably is.
I feel like I would have that internal debate with myself, even
So
if
the-
I had a
I did watch
strict
this scene
rule.
twice, and the first time I definitely was like, "You moron! You could have taken on that one zombie alone enough to like give them room to run." And then the
Right,
second
right.
time I watched it, I was like, "Oh wait, there are more zombies right there too," and
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
the positional
fact,
aspect of
it's-
it was a
the-
tough call.
The thing that I liked about this intro is that usually you're displayed with a singular hero type who's always, honest and courageous and trying to fight for everyone, self-sacrificing, but somehow ending up surviving. But this guy was, well, what is the opposing factor? Like, what if your fight or flight response was more in the favor of flight?
Right.
Like, and I think that was an interesting take, because then not only is there the pressure of trying to survive the zombie apocalypse, but there's also the racking guilt that you have over what you did.
And to his credit, for the rest of the movie that he's a part of, he does seem saddled with that guilt. Like when he's, and we'll talk about. I'll save it
we'll
for when
save
we go
it
into
for-
Do you mind if I
Yeah.
say something real quick?
Yeah.
Sure.
The reason they've survived is because they've learned to survive, and by surviving, they had to
Survive.
survive. Yeah, but by running. So in
Yeah.
all cases, their response should be flight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it.
As cowardly as it may have seemed, you
Yeah.
also have to think that
Well, it's different when it's a loved one,
your
right?
Yeah,
brain
yeah.
is probably geared into survival.
Like if you saw
so-
a loved one in that room, would you just as easily jump out a window and left them go?
Well,
Like,
yeah. No,
where
I
are you
wouldn't.
going?
Yeah.
I,
yeah.
I see. I was watching this just a moment ago again with Irina, and I remarked I wouldn't just leave her.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
she's like banging on the window or whatever.
Yeah. It's a tough call because
Yeah.
you know that none of us have had a situation like that where we would
Exactly.
know what we would do. We would hope that we
Yeah.
would be the person that would fight for
Yeah.
their loved one.
And-
but
Because at the end of the
also-
day,
I would
like,
try
what's
to
worth
think of
living
something.
for if you're not with them?
yeah,
so it's like-
Yeah.
I think
I think it was
That's why-
I think that's why the kids are an interesting
Yeah, yeah.
dynamic where
Yeah.
it's like,
Well, that's-
what,
yeah.
does he want to live for the kids or does
Well,
he want
because
to save his wife?
Considering
There
how
are
much
so
they
many-
sucked, I wouldn't.
there are also so many couples or parents that I know who kind of they have this understanding that if one of us needs to survive for our kids, then we're willing to do that.
But did he know the
like
kids
that-
were still alive? It didn't seem like. I don't know.
They kind of assumed they were just because they had gone overseas. So yeah, that's a good question because they in the first one all of basically Britain or London or whatever, they don't know how far this has spread.
Right.
And so in this sequence, did they somehow know that it hadn't extended overseas?
Yeah. I want to say, so this sequence happened before 28 days later.
Right.
And they do figure out that at least in 28 days later that it was just the Britain that was quarantined.
Okay.
So I don't know what they know.
Yeah,
but I'm guessing he's like hoping against hope that. Yeah.
Anyway, I thought the intro was kind of clever in revealing some of the details without being a little too kind of like a plot vomit, basically, where people just kind of spill out all the information to handhold to the viewer, you know?
Yeah.
So
in regards to the before you go on in the story, that his whole escape to the boat, I love that guy Jacob just like had been toiling away at fixing this boat, and then Dawn comes in,
just jumps in,
and then Jacob falls in the water and gets eaten by zombies.
Granted, he did kind of try to save him, but it was
he tried. It just seemed funny. Like, hey, thanks, Jacob. All right. I'm out.
That's why I also think they were trying to set him up as the quote unquote villain, because they don't want you to like him. It's like, oh, look what else he did.
I think but also, I have to commend Robert Carlyle. I liked his portrayal of this character, and kind of just the driving away on the boat. Like, I'm gonna curse a little here, but his just repeated, kind of like usually everyone you expect in films to like overreact and just start bawling on the spot, but he's like still hyped up on that adrenaline, and people just kind of say "oh shit" as a mantra, as you're trying to deal with something.
Interesting character. We'll talk about him more. After the infected begin to die of starvation, NATO forces take control of Britain. 28 weeks after the outbreak, an American commanded force under the command of Brigadier General Stone brings in settlers. Among the new arrivals are Dawn and Alice's children, Tammy and Andy, who were out of the country during the outbreak. They are admitted to District 1, a safe zone on the Isle of Dogs, guarded by the U.S. Army. Sergeant Doyle, a Delta Force sniper, and his friend Chief Flynn, a helicopter pilot, are amongst the troops guarding the district. Tammy and Andy are reunited with their father, who was found by the U.S. Army and has become the district's caretaker. In their new flat, Dan fabricates a lie about the circumstances surrounding their mother's death. Although it was like, I wouldn't say it.
It was like a white lie.
He was bending the truth.
Well, I took issue with this scene because it just felt like if you're gonna just tell your kids, one, you don't need to tell them the grisly details, especially the first time you see them, of their mother's death.
Yeah.
Don't traumatize them. Just say she didn't make it. But don't force this, obviously crocodile tears lie of you tried your best to do everything and you didn't. It felt like he was trying to set a story the way, especially the way he's crying. They just seem like crocodile tears to me.
So it did come off slightly crocodile tears to me. It was like a half and half. It was like he was actually sad, but he was also acting.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think it was all fake. I think he got to the tears by actually feeling a little bit.
Right.
But maybe he was exaggerating it a little.
I have no doubt that he was traumatized by it. It just seemed forced to spin this story to his kids for no benefit at all to either one of them.
So this also happens to be what is it 6 months later? What was it? 4
Roughly,
months?
It was 28 weeks.
Okay. But no. It wasn't. Well, yeah, but so at this point he's had time to grieve and he hasn't seen his kids in forever. So he's probably kind of tried to play out this scenario in his head.
Yeah, justify it.
And he's probably justified what he did or tried to. He still obviously has the guilt from it, but I could understand why someone wouldn't be more emotional, or I don't know. It's it was a little bit of a weird scene. I wouldn't. Maybe he thought that it would be best if they just knew. Like, I wouldn't. At the same time, he holds back info.
What an interesting way to start a movie, though.
Well, I think it's foreshadowing the later plot where I got to the hint of this saying, okay, she's still alive.
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting to start with a character, though, who's kind of framed as your protagonist, but he's very flawed.
Yeah.
You're doing mental gymnastics to try and justify him as a protagonist you can be behind.
Yeah.
Yet knowing that, hey, this guy's actually kind of a coward, and now he's showing us the whole crocodile tears act until obviously Jeremy Renner comes into the scene.
The thing that it almost kind of puts in the audience mindset is that he's a coward, but he's going to end up sacrificing himself at some point for his kids and then redeeming his character. But we all know that
he's also
doesn't
put
happen.
in a position of authority within the society. He's a section officer. He's got this all-access pass that apparently gets him into every single thing. But that kind of creates that inner conflict where it's like, I don't fully trust this character yet. Everyone else seems to, and he's in this, position to do damage if he needs to.
Yeah. Do you think he got that position by spinning some sort of alternate variation of the truth of his escape story?
Well,
perhaps?
I just think he's that type of person who knows how to kind of weasel his way up. I mean,
a little slimy.
He does.
Yeah.
He's a little weaselly. You're right.
Yeah.
I think also we're not even addressing one of the weird things about this whole thing. Why are they opening up the Isle of Dogs for people? Like, it's right by the infected. You can literally walk to them.
Just don't go over
this
the
is
canal.
a dumb idea.
It wasn't even opened up. They were guarding it just terribly.
It's stupid.
So I think the only thing that helps with that argument is that, yes, it's stupid, but at least there's one character that's kind of aware that this is stupid.
Yeah, the one guy.
Rose Byrne.
Yeah.
And maybe
Jeremy Renner.
Jeremy Renner.
We should talk about
her,
them, by the way.
Her name in the movie, by the way, is it's Scarlet. But his name is, what is it?
Don.
No, not
Doyle.
the main character.
Doyle.
No,
Sorry.
I have a
Doyle.
segment on all the characters' names a little bit later on that I found
All right,
interesting.
cool.
Doyle.
But anyway, I think for something like that to be at least believable is if there is one character that is calling out all the BS, like this is dumb, why are we doing this? And then you're like, okay, at least there is some sense in people and you can understand that people do dumb things.
Yeah.
So
Well, they've got 15,000 people in this new settlement, and they're just now getting their first children and not knowing how to deal with it. So it's already so they're already not set up properly.
Yeah.
Do you think that's maybe? Are they trying to display the U.S. as an overconfident, like we can take care of this kind of thing? This is all we need to do.
I believe that. I think that to some degree it is plausible because for the sake of economy and the sake of furthering other things, getting things moving, they will take that risk if they think, oh yeah, it's eradicated. We're done. We don't need to.
Well, it shows
wait
in all the army guys out there, and they're all just like, "This is boring. Give me something to shoot."
Speaking of which, though, like I always love in movies when they have people from the military just kind of like shooting the whatever, and they're just talking like, "Oh yeah, I found some." Oh, your puppies are escaping or whatever. They always have like some
got some dogs
lingo.
escaping?
The worst army
puppies.
lingo they have in this is one of the guys at one point says when everything's
Fubar?
getting out.
Oh man, this is FUBAR.
Yes.
Completely flat delivery.
I was like, who's gonna talk
It's
like
like
that
someone
in this scenario?
basically not Google. They went to Ask Jeeves and said, "What is military jargon?" And they just copied
Yeah, I
it
know.
and
That's
pasted it. into
basically
this.
that's the impression I got for these military guys, and they're
maybe-
all just like, "Ha ha ha! We've been buddies forever. Oh, this is boring. Oh, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. He's holding his or whatever." Kind of like I don't know.
Well, and he's just like spying on these people. None of these people know to like close their curtains, even though they're doing
Yeah,
whatever.
every single one of them had their curtains open.
I don't know.
Anyway,
They're
like,
doing that
we
thing.
sorry, we should talk about Jeremy Renner and Rose Byrne at least in these roles.
Yeah.
What do y'all think about the introductions to their characters?
I actually really like both of them.
Yeah.
They're very likable.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah,
get on their
I
side
like-
more so than Dawn for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think this was around the time when Jeremy Renner was starting to get big with Hurt Locker and
Yeah.
so
How many years later did this movie come out after the first one?
This is what, 3 years?
2007 to 2002, so
Oh,
5 years.
wow.
5 years.
That was a jump.
Yeah.
Dang.
So
I thought
yeah,
Hurt Locker came out after that.
this is actually one of my more. I like this Jeremy Renner.
Yeah,
role
I agree.
Yeah.
More
Especially
than
more
most
than
of
Hurt
his.
Locker.
Oh, yeah.
Personally, he was my favorite in this movie.
Yeah, he's
Personally.
I like that he kind of comes in. It's 25% of the through the movie already, and he just kind of comes in as like this kind of low key
Yeah.
main character,
Yeah.
and then kind of leaves 25% before the movie's over.
Right.
Yeah.
He's
Spoiler
a-
alert.
Yeah.
He's one of those where in the film you see his character show up and you immediately feel this sense of kind of safety, you
Yeah.
know? And I always love when there's at least a character in a horror film or something like this where you just feel like, oh, when they're around, everything's okay.
They're going to be
You know?
okay.
He definitely has that, and that's actually later on they switched roles in a certain sequence towards the end of this movie because of what you just said. He felt like a safety role, so they take him away earlier so that characters feel more vulnerable.
Yeah,
I'll
that
just
makes
say that.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I guess he finally lost that game of
Well,
tag.
they succeeded in that then.
Good. Have you even seen that movie?
Your family
I've
made
seen
me
it.
watch it.
I haven't seen
We
it.
didn't make you
I haven't
watch
seen
it.
They forced me. Yeah, it was on here in the background.
They threw in that little jump scare too, just to kind of get you with him pretending to be a zombie and jumping up on.
Oh, the helicopter
Twice,
guy?
By
Yeah.
the way, dude, I mean, as nice as Jeremy Renner is, I would have punched him in the face. I do not take that lightly. Do not.
I thought that was kind of funny.
Do not surprise me. You know,
That's so. I actually wrote that note down. Like, how dumb do you have to be to pretend to be a zombie in a zombie apocalypse with a military person?
Okay, so I think the point is that they haven't been here for the really terrible part.
The Americans.
So I
didn't
think
actually,
they heard about what happened, and
But
they're incredibly bored. So
Well-
they're probably kind of like making light jokes
And
about
Flynn
it.
literally
Dumb,
just
though.
lives in that helicopter 24/7, like by himself. He like does not leave that helicopter apparently through the whole movie.
I know.
Can you imagine though if you just turn around and shot him?
Hey, AJ, he's an NPC, okay? They
Yeah,
can't.
well,
they can't
I'm already trigger shy from Michael and Lost, so I immediately did not trust him.
Yes. Oh. Yeah, that's really sad. I can't trust that guy.
Walt.
Hey, I mean, that's a credit to his performance, I guess.
Yeah.
We also got Idris Elba as Stone, who's basically in the same role that he played in Pacific Rim. He's just some
He-
kind of not. He's not a general,
Yeah.
but he's like.
I love
he's
Idris
always-
Elba, but I feel like
yeah.
his agent he just agrees to do anything for a paycheck. That's
I
kind
know.
of to his detriment, even though I think he's a great actor.
There was no.
He's a little bit typecast too. He's
Yeah.
always in a position of authority
He's a
where
power
he's
guy.
kind of like a stickler sometimes, except for maybe Luther.
And also, there
Yeah,
were
I
no
liked Luther a lot.
dimensions to his
Luther's
character
really good.
at all.
Well,
Yeah.
one thing about Idris Elba, though, in that case, is that it speaks that he doesn't think too highly of himself, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know a lot of actors, they're like, only Oscar movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, although this one is like, it didn't really require much from him acting wise in this. It was kind of
Yeah.
just a role to fill.
Seemed like a safe paycheck. for
Also,
him.
this was a little earlier in his career. He was
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
like, "Oh,
yeah.
I'll take this."
Well,
This
you
is-
you also can't blame actors for just taking roles. I mean, that's their job, you know. But
Yeah, what else are they going to eat?
on a slightly different transition. We haven't talked about the kids at all either.
Yeah, Imogen Poots.
Poots.
Yeah,
Who's,
that's how I felt about them. That word. I lost it. I lost it.
I am not cutting that. That was
Calm
hilarious.
down. Calm down. Start over.
That's how I felt about him.
What
Imogen
did you-
Poots.
what?
Her?
That's
You
a
mean?
girl.
No, there's another kid. He's probably talking about the kid.
No, I know. I messed up on who is who because that name is so androgynous. Like, who
I'm
could
sorry,
it belong to?
Reese, can you remind us where we left off with the description of the plot? Because I'm.
So the kids haven't
no,
left yet.
I was just
Gearing
wanting
up.
us to talk about
Oh,
Jeremy
okay.
Renner and Rose Byrne in those roles, and they're kind of introduced into this story.
Right.
And,
Yeah, so let's read the next paragraph.
Oh,
Yeah,
wait,
yeah.
before we do that, we do get the interaction between the father, Don, and his children.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Where we already did kind of talk about this, but I
But not
just
the
wanted to
kids, not
reiterate.
the actors themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got
who are
he-
interesting.
Yeah, we talked about his crocodile tears and all of that.
So-
The Sorry, go ahead.
No,
You started.
I was just going to bring up, you're in my notes here because I wrote, Irina typically hates child actors. I have a feeling she's going to hate them too.
You're
Oh
kinda-
no.
you're
And
kinda
then it's
wrong.
like, oh no, they have heterochromia. It's always going to be an important bit there.
I know. Well, okay, so up until this point, when that kid has heterochromia, I didn't realize that the shot in the beginning, where it first focuses on the wife's eyes, that they were supposed to be different colors. That
Yeah, because
wasn't
the lighting was
apparent
so
to me.
dark.
Yeah, but now I'm like, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
But the reason I didn't fully dislike these child actors is because the one from 28 Days Later was just so horrifically bad. But
yeah.
I would put
I guess
the
it's a
boy in
horror
this
film,
one
so it
close
makes sense.
to that
The
one.
kids in this one
actually,
were better.
the kids are
Yeah.
better, and I will
hated
say,
this boy.
okay, so hang on a minute. Like the writing of what they do is frustrating, but
You know, they
at
should not have
least-
gone to the...
Their acting
they
is
shouldn't have,
good.
but at the same time, they're just kids. They weren't part of this problem. They were over in wherever they were, the Americas, I guess. I'm not sure.
They're in
They
a
were hanging out
Spanish
somewhere
refugee
else.
camp.
Yeah, there you go. And so maybe I understand their little agenda or quest to go find memorabilia at their house, but their acting is vastly superior to the first film of, whatever that
Totally
girl,
agree.
Hannah. But
I think the daughter was better.
she is better, but there's a risk when you have child actors that they're just kids, they haven't developed the skill all the time. But so I think they're passable. I think they're fine.
Yeah, especially Imogen Poots, who
Yeah.
I think she acts older than her age.
Well,
Like
that's what
the-
I think she was better than the son.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. She was a lot better than whoever played Susan in Narnia.
Oh, it's much better.
Excuse me.
don't talk crap about David's girlfriend.
I'm sorry.
She
Even though
would
she's
have
15.
played a better Susan, I'm sure.
Yeah, agreed. Actually,
All right. That night, Andy dreams about forgetting his mother's face, so Tammy and Andy sneak out of the safe zone and return to their former home, where they collect family photographs and other mementos. To his shock, Andy finds Alice alive and seemingly uninfected in a semi-conscious, delirious state. The three are soon discovered by soldiers and taken back to District 1. Alice is taken to a quarantine room where she is tested and found to be an asymptomatic carrier of the Rage virus. Don makes an unauthorized visit to Alice in her isolation cell, begging her to forgive him. She accepts his apology and tells him she loves him. When they kiss, Don is infected and then savagely kills her and goes on a rampage.
It's like a zombie version of Romeo and Juliet.
I'm gonna say this
so
movie.
romantic.
This movie is a lot more vicious than
Yeah.
the first one,
Yeah.
and this is the first evidence of that. The
Yeah.
way this interaction happens is just so tragic.
Yeah.
Where it and your mind is doing like backflips too. Because first, when I was watching this sequence, I was like, oh, she knows she's infected and she's getting revenge on him by
Yeah.
accepting the kiss. But then as the situation turns for the worse, you realize, oh, she didn't
know,
She didn't
yeah.
realize she could spread it, and now
Because if she
he's-
did, she wouldn't have done that because
Yeah.
she's strapped to a gurney.
Right.
yeah, and now he's becoming animalistic, and the way he kind of just savages her is so it's
Well,
hard to watch.
Apparently,
Dude, so
goring
the-
people's eyes out is a calling
So
card
the
for these
interesting,
zombies.
that's what
like
I
the,
was thinking.
the interesting thing about goring out the eyeballs is in the first one, it seemed like, well, that was the human doing it to the military personnel or whatever.
Ooh,
but
he
in
did
this
do
one,
it out of rage. when you
I
think
don't
about it.
I don't know if you guys thought the same thing, but it felt almost intentional that he went for her eyes because if you remember, a lot of his dream sequences involve that look that she
Yeah.
gives him when he turns on her and closes the door.
Yeah.
So, and since this virus is the rage virus, maybe he has this pent up anger or this dislike of the idea that someone would look at him in disgust.
yeah,
And so he kind of like bores his thumbs
this is
into
why
her eyes.
I really want to know what the zombies are. This is the first case where I want to know what the zombies are thinking, like when they're doing this.
You're right.
Like,
They haven't explained it, and so you're thinking, "Oh, these are normal zombies," because that's all you are led to believe. And then I don't think
But it
anyone's
goes
going to
back-
put that much thought into.
Yeah.
Oh, the rage virus, therefore they're he saw the
So
eyes,
the-
therefore gout. Yeah, no, they're zombies. Like this
Yeah.
is dumb to me.
So that,
Yeah. Well, you
but
see, you feel the rage where he's
yeah.
like self-destructing too. He's like slamming his own head against the glass and all this stuff, and it's just like
Mm-hmm.
animalistic.
Yeah, part of that I thought was him trying to battle the virus, where
Yeah.
it was like I could tell the virus was taking him over, but he was
Yeah.
also like trying to fight it. So yeah, I don't know.
It almost came across to me as like a poisoning effect almost.
Well, that's what it always looks like in these movies, right? Where they're kind of like writhing and they're trying to fight off that feeling until
Yeah.
it finally takes them over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there was a slight missed opportunity here if we backpedal a little bit. So they do find that Alice is alive. Mm-hmm. I think they could have milked a little more out of that dynamic of, having Alice actually interact with Dawn before this happens. I wanted to see, like, how she would respond to him leaving her.
Yeah.
And we're never kind of
given that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It
yeah.
also just highlights like several problems I have with this movie. Is just like at every turn, it's just like, this is so dumb. Why would you do that? And just the fact that this compound, you have it on the Isle of Dogs, bound on three sides by the Thames, and you have all the security superficially. It's like security theater, but like where the kids are coming in, you have like 20 guards just standing there in one hallway. Yet there's no perimeter guards. You know, the kids just slip out, except for Jeremy
Yeah,
Renner, who
dude.
sees them leaving.
How-
Doesn't,
That made
Your-
me
he calls
your
it out, and they only
puppies-
go after him like 5 hours later. And then
They were
they
tracking
give
them. They're just to see what they do.
Do you have
Yeah,
a,
they give
do you
this
have
guy's a
few
section
dogs
officer.
going?
And then
Who-
they come out with like a helicopter.
yeah.
What?
But he's got this
Yeah.
all-access pass that apparently gets him into like even super like high
Yeah, that part was
security
just,
areas, and there's no security guarding this
That makes no sense
curious
at all.
case biologically.
I kind of assumed that outer area, it wasn't supposed to be dangerous because they thought that all the zombies had died of starvation.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, hey, we haven't completely cleared this area, but they're probably all starved to death.
Yeah, it's
So-
zombies. Don't be that lazy.
So all the snipers on the roof are for the people inside.
Yeah.
I'm
For
not-
realistic terms, though, there would be a whole lot more as far as military personnel on all of the borders. Like there, and maybe it's that they got sloppy after a while, where it's just like, oh yeah, there's no real threat, but you know, they're kind of just slacking off at their posts a little bit, not
Yeah.
as vigilant maybe. But yeah, it seemed a little too easy for them to get out of there.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought the snipers that was their just in case measure, where it was like, I don't know. You're right, though.
You're talking about when the kids are crossing the bridge?
Yeah, to get to their house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. The thing is, that is not how real life works. Like you can like you'd be quarantined off. Like if there's a section that people are not supposed to cross, nobody is crossing
You're not
because they've
gonna.
already encountered people that have tried to
Yeah.
cross.
Well,
The thing is,
also
what if
by
we
What
this.
know how to
Yeah, sorry.
do
Go
that.
ahead.
What if your resources are spread so thin and your manpower is spread thin and you just can't cover all
That's
of
one
the
Well,
thing.
then maybe
Only
they
in
shouldn't be
England.
bringing in
But
a whole
it's
bunch of
Only
people.
in England.
But they also
if
shouldn't
they-
have 20 guys just standing there in one hallway that's insignificant.
Yeah, yeah.
True.
So even if they're spread thin, they show the amount of people on there, and shouldn't there not be some sniper dude on some building, like looking down at the bridge? If they're spread thin, that dude's not going to be there.
Well,
They're gonna-
he was
Or have
watching.
walls
So
and
that-
gates.
that's-
I
The
know,
problem
but-
is this is still so early on in this contagion or whatever that even risking someone going out to a contaminated zone is not a good idea, because even if they understand that maybe it could die off within days out there, the fact that you're going into zones that are obviously not cleared out completely, those can be contaminated. And she even like touches a dead body, a dead zombie out there, and I'm just thinking like you probably got germs all over your
Probably got
hands.
the
Like
virus, I don't know. this is my main problem with the movie is that it draws you on because it's such a good production. It's well made. It's well put together. The acting is actually pretty good all the way across the board. And then you think, this isn't realistic at all.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
does not work. This,
I'm
this
completely
falls
with you there,
apart
David.
so
Yeah, yeah.
easily. And then once that happens, like, because I was on board. Like, I was heavily on board watching the first, like, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then there was a point where I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't make sense.
Well, it's
Yeah.
like it's one of those things where it's usually really good directors or writers can cover up mistakes like this with creating answers, but with this one, it's obvious that this happens because they need to further the plot and they needed to find kind of a shortcut to do that.
Yeah.
And
Well,
in
and then
addition to
Andy
that,
talks about forgetting his mom's face, and then they go and he finds the picture in the new house, which was kind of cool from like a thematic theme. And then
Yeah.
even when the mom, she obviously knows who her son is, but even as she's hugging him, she's squeezing him too hard, so it almost feels like the virus is still affecting her to some
Yeah.
extent.
That was
She's just
weird.
resistant.
Yeah.
But it never really fully answered that question, to which,
It
like
didn't.
Reese said, I wish that we had more screen time with her to kind of explain things.
Right. I agree.
all this leads into like one of the big issues I have with this movie, with like the the eye gouging scene and all the stuff. I think it was just a lot more bloody than it needed to be. They should have stuck to a more psychological.
I disagree.
it was way more gory, yeah.
I
they
like
should have.
the gore.
I
liked it too.
I know y'all like it, and it provides this visceral sort of thing. But I like the idea of a horror movie being more psychological than it being
I think
blood gushing
I
everywhere.
think that scene that you're talking about that's hard to watch reaffirmed the rage virus
Right.
as something
Yeah.
that is terrifying.
Yeah.
I think it adds to just how scary this situation
I
is.
think-
How
But they don't need as much blood as they put in there. Things
I
are like
think that-
spewing everywhere.
Yeah.
and, like,
They
Well,
do focus on that
it's
a
a-
lot.
any-
like,
Anyway,
there's no
it's-
need for all the blood. You could do the same thing without
The
all
blood
the extra
is
blood.
the blood is a style choice. There's gore and then there isn't.
yeah, it's a
but,
horror movie.
I
blood,
think
man.
and if it's a virus called a rage virus, you kind of expect there to be blood and guts. But the thing that it kind of seems obvious in this, as opposed to 28 Days Later, it's almost like the 28 Days Later had a little more of that psychological aspect as far as, what happens to people in dire situations like this. And that military group obviously were a little crazy. But in this one, it's like they decided, we need to make this more about the zombies again. We need to instill that fear of the zombies, where in the first it was slightly diminished because of the other rising antagonist.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you are the zombie.
Yeah.
So can clear this up for me. I've watched this movie twice, and I'm still trying to figure out how Don got out of that cell.
What?
Do you remember? Like when he he killed his wife.
He turns, but he's still in a lockdown cell.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I definitely did wonder that because he's
Well,
stuck
also,
in there.
how does he
Maybe breaks
get
glass,
half
I
the
don't
places he is following them the whole movie?
know. So that was literally one of the things at the end, because he shows up in so many scenarios with the kids. I'm like, is he tracking them?
Yeah.
Like, is that what he's doing?
I think part of him is still in the zombie.
Yeah.
It's just like it's
weird.
he's
It's
mostly.
almost as if they
Yeah.
didn't explain that at all.
Well,
I know
Well,
you're meant to assume it,
Yeah.
but it's not explained very well.
So,
I don't know. I kind of thought it was dumb.
what did y'all?
Yes,
so,
AJ?
talking about Don, what did y'all feel about kind of the other side of him getting caught in his lie when he's encountering his kids after they get caught?
Oh, yeah.
Also, we found your wife.
well,
yeah.
he's-
So
the
that
thing
just
is,
kind
he
of
doesn't.
it
Yeah,
kind of
go ahead.
reaffirmed the crocodile tears aspect more,
Yeah,
the trauma
yeah.
aspect, where he's just kind of a crappy liar and just he's caught in his
Yeah.
lie and he's just kind of grinning there.
You don't understand.
Well, also his explanation was, well, the thing is that it's all good. She's alive. Forget
Focus
about
on
the
the
fact that
positive.
I abandoned her.
Yeah, I think this was the end of his character arc where you were trying to see both sides of it. You were trying to reason with his character, and now it finally falls on the side of,
Yeah.
oh, he was a coward and he's a liar. Whereas
Yeah.
so that's just the end of that arc. It's like, oh, okay,
Quote,
so
unquote,
he was the worst version of what we thought he was.
Yeah.
That's how I would
It's
explain
like
that.
he's just trying to save himself essentially again, like he did earlier in the cottage.
Yeah.
Little weasel man.
Yeah,
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 as he
trying
said.
to make things work, and that's why he went to see her first in the first place, because
try
he
to-
wanted to nip it in the
Yeah,
bud.
exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah. So he wanted to reconcile with her before she tells her kids that your dad is a coward and he left me for dead.
Yeah, I almost had a foreboding that he was going to kill her himself to try to like cover the lie or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But he weaseled himself out of that cell as a zombie,
yeah.
and then it's just like he just starts attacking these soldiers, and they just let him run up to them instead of trying to fight
Yeah.
him. Or
Yeah.
Dude, I
Yeah.
feel so bad for her. That's
So,
just the worst.
I will say also, they don't like actually showing people being attacked by zombies in this movie multiple times. I was like, all right, show me what it's like to be attacked. And then it's flashes of a face.
Dude.
It's flashes in the dark. There's blood spurting. There is not a single scene where you
You
can
got
actually
it when
see
the
it.
wife died, dude.
Okay, that one scene where he's on her. That, even
I
then,
don't need
it's
to
shaky
see it.
cam.
I don't need
No,
to see it every
Even
single
then, it was
sequence.
like shaky cam. You see her face. There's blood on
Yeah.
her. There's not a good scene. It's
Anyway,
always
we're-
dumb from then on.
All right.
What's going?
General Stone orders the building to be quarantined and orders a code red alert in District 1. Civilians are herded into safe rooms, but despite the precautions, Don breaks into a room full of people and starts a domino effect of rapid infection. The crowd, with half its members infected, breaks out of the safe room and into the streets. Scarlett, a U.S. Army medical officer, rescues Tammy and Andy as the soldiers in District 1 are ordered to shoot indiscriminately. Doyle, unable to bring himself to comply with the order, abandons his post and escapes with Scarlett, Tammy, Andy, and several others through the Greenwich Foot Tunnel. Stone orders District 1 to be firebombed, but large numbers of the infected, including Dawn, escape the bombardment. Scarlett informs Doyle that the children might hold the key to a cure because of their genetic makeup and must be protected.
All right.
So I like how they quarantine these people and then just leave one door open to the outside where zombies can get in.
So the thing about this whole sequence that you're bringing up is I literally wrote in my notes. Let me go find it. I said, dude, this lockdown protocol, let's think of every way we can possibly freak people out.
Yeah.
Turn the
Red
lights
lights. Put the red lights on.
One of the most annoying things about these movies that I always see, and this pertains to to another film that we'll talk about later, but they always flicker the lights in every single
it's
movie.
scarier.
It's a zombie aesthetic, okay?
The thing is, there's no reason why the lights should be flickering.
You know, the zombies probably go to the room where they take care of the lights,
They're just
and they're
flicking
just
the
like they have one up there just flicking the lights.
Keep flicking that.
All right, guys. So
'Cause-
we're gonna go into emergency mode here. Now, what is perfect for that? Lower visibility. Just
There you
what
go.
we need.
Okay, so as much as this movie is stupid, I also think it does things really well.
Oh yeah.
If you actually try to break down the logistics of everything that's happening, it is very dumb. But look at this movie and take it for surface value as a horror movie. It's very effective.
Well,
I like the breakout sequence where things are spreading and it's just mass pandemonium. I
It's
think
fun, but
I actually really like the confusion
Yeah.
the snipers feel of shooting innocent people
Yeah.
and zombies. I'm like, what is
so
the
that part
moral?
that part is interesting.
Yeah.
But
I like
because
how-
that's go ahead.
I like how
AJ.
Andy, he kind of uses his head, climbs on top of people, and gets in an air duct to get away from everything.
Yeah.
But then,
the
5
luxuries
minutes
of
later,
being
he
a
just
child.
stands in the middle of a stampede while people
So
are getting shot.
the thing about
Genius.
this lockdown and throwing everyone into that big room, in every crisis scenario, people know that yes, obviously there's a crisis, but in those scenarios, the populace themselves are also their own worst enemy. So they have to factor that in as well. So
Yeah.
the fact that they didn't have a way to try and control the group, do kind of emergency
Protocol.
protocols to try and train these people like a fire drill.
Yeah.
If this happens, we need to do this.
But I
That's
also
what I
think
wrote
that's
down
the-
is-
I also think that's the purpose of Don's character. He's kind of like the one who's aware of how crazy this situation is, and that's why he's kind of going against it in a way.
Okay.
I know he never calls out anything as stupid,
Yeah.
particularly, but he still seems like the one where you're kind of like, oh yeah, this guy's on to kind of how this system is flawed, or I don't know.
Maybe since he's the section officer and kind of in charge of maybe doing drills like that and getting people prepared, since he only got to that position because he weaseled his way up, he's just incompetent at it. So that's why.
Are you just trying to say there's a lot of weasels in this movie?
But I think maybe the reason he is so high up in rank is because he's one of the few that survived. So they're kind of relying on his knowledge of the situation. So anyway, he's dumb.
Even a military encampment like this, there would be multiple redundancies. And here it's just one thing minorly got wrong. Let's not try to stop it now. Let's just nuke the whole place.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And it seems like General Stone was kind of itching to pull that trigger right off the bat.
I
Right.
think,
Go to Code
I
Red.
think that's also they're trying to establish his character is just kind of cold-hearted, doesn't
Yeah.
really care.
He's
He's kind of ready to do that, and
Yeah.
I believe that he would do something, make that sort of decision. So
I think the purpose of this film is we're going to suspend believability because the point of it is to fear the zombies. So they try to create
Mass
situations
hysteria.
that will instill that fear.
and honestly, when you think about a zombie plague, that the moment you get infected, you're done for pretty much 10
Yeah.
seconds later.
Yeah.
You have to have protocols that are weirdly extreme and beyond what we can understand. So in a way, I don't. It's stupid, but I'm also like I don't know how I would.
So with
know?
this, it's large congregations of people are your enemy. You have to isolate every single person.
Quarantine.
So I would understand if they had these facilities that everyone had to be in basically locked down cells as units you know, or certain families, you know, just so it's like really there's no huge space because it spreads so fast, and that would be hard to contain.
I'm wondering if like they realized how dangerous this was, and the only way you could contain it is if you just wipe it off the face of the map.
Yeah,
because it's so
Americans.
Some of you may die. That is a risk I am willing to take.
To make.
That's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Was that a Shrek quote?
Yes, it was.
You just butchered it, but it's okay.
The reason
messed
he
up one
used it
word.
was
2
because
words.
he saw a meme having to do with COVID-19.
But yeah, I was wondering while I was watching these, I wonder if in research facilities, if there were at some point a zombie outbreak and it had been quelled, but people wanted to research it to see if they had a cure. I wonder if they, like an actual government would, you know, rig the place with some sort of self-destruct mechanism if things went wrong.
Yeah,
Or
okay.
like, I want to know how they do that. You
Well,
know?
that they instead of doing that, they firebombed the whole place, as we saw in this movie.
I know.
Well, yeah, but like way too late, you know?
How do you feel like Doyle and Scarlett get on once they first meet?
I don't know. They just kind of meet, and I'm like, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like,
Well, when
I
Doyle
feel like
shows
there's
up
kind
as
of
the
an-
savior of the, you know, that little ragtag group sheltering in the warehouse, it was
feel
a
like there's-
welcome, you know, kind of sigh of relief. Like, okay, we actually got someone who's on the ball.
Definitely. He
and-
knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
They seem like you get the sense that they're on kind of the same page.
I think there's a part of me that they're kind of accelerating the plot here, but I know we kind of go through that sequence where he feels conflicted about shooting the people below, and he sees the boy kind of run into, what was it, a convenience store or something, and he feels personally obligated to look after that kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, his defection seems a little quick. Like I don't really feel that he was, I don't know, it would be a little more believable if he was kind of conflicted to begin with.
Well, they
Because
specifically
he's
show him
very-
spare Andy's life as he's just standing there, and then his immediate next shot is shooting another sniper
Right.
on another corner of the
Right.
roof who's on his own, you know,
Because
wearing
the
his colors.
children are the future. But the thing that he immediately shoots a sniper to protect these civilians, which, like, that's not bad, but at the same time, these were your comrades.
I mean,
Like,
we don't-
But think
don't-
about it. He in this scene, he's just seen like a number of people that he's verified. Okay, they're fine, and then he sees them get killed immediately, and the other guys are just like, whatever. Just mowing
Orders
down
are
the
Yeah,
guys.
it's
Well, the
good to
thing is, he
establish
has-
him as a moral rock basis for the
Yeah.
movie, so you can rely on him. Everything's kind of built off of him for the rest of the movie.
The problem is, though, that he has this ability to communicate with everyone, but he doesn't even endeavor to try and tell them, hey, there are civilians here, they are not contaminated. Is there a way that, I don't know. I think he has more power to save them that way than he does just kind of roguing it. And
I don't know. The order from up top was like kill everybody.
Yeah, and he was even like, copy
yeah.
that last, or is that what you, did I hear that right? And they were like, yeah, and then other people were freaking out. I was like, oh man, this is FUBAR. And then
This is
the other
FUBAR,
guy that's
man.
shooting at him, he's like, yeah, that guy's just completely freaking out. Like, so I think he knows both sides of it, that there's not really much you can make of this situation, because some of these guys are just following orders and they're scared.
Yeah.
And then he's
It's
just
like
basically getting out of Dodge because he knows it's going to hell.
I understand that, but they're in close quarters for a while, talking to each other. They're very chummy, so like to some degree, he wouldn't feel like. I know he talks to a helicopter guy, but like you wouldn't even try, really. Like if they say no, then get out of there. But I don't know. It just
guess
seemed weird.
Maybe he knows once
It's
Code
like he
Red's
was ready to
initiated, they're
leave.
already started the countdown timer for the firebombing.
I suppose so.
So what did y'all think about the firebombing sequence? I thought just aesthetically, it looked really good for the
Yeah, I
budget
agree.
of this
Actually,
movie.
some of this
Yeah, it
segment of
did.
the movie was the best aesthetically, in my opinion, that they
Yeah.
have. After the firebombing, the jets soaring overhead, just screaming. I mean, I thought that was really impactful. And then as
Yeah.
they're going through Green Sandwich, the Millennium Bridge and stuff like that, St. Paul's Cathedral. I mean, artistically, that
That
kind of
come
calls
with
back
eggs
to the
and
beginning
ham. Yeah.
of the first movie.
This is the first time that the sequel actually surpassed the first one in terms of like,
Yeah.
oh, the scope of this movie is larger.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it just feels bigger.
You immediately
than the first
feel
movie.
that they have a bigger budget
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it still holds up today. Now this is still technically a low budget movie.
Yeah.
We'll
Yep.
go into that later, but
I didn't
I
feel
actually
that.
liked the
Whereas that was my
firebombing
complaint for
sequence.
the first one was it feels like a low budget movie, and this one didn't.
yeah.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
think-
Weird
yeah.
how the budget doesn't actually affect how good a movie is.
Overall, still into the plot,
see about
even
that.
though there
I
are
think we will.
even though there are flaws, I still felt positively about this film going through.
Yeah.
Flynn arrives by helicopter to pick up Doyle, but refuses to take anyone else, as they would be shot down for carrying people who might be infected. Flynn contacts Doyle by radio and tells him to leave the civilians and head to Wembley Stadium. Doyle ignores his instructions and escorts Andy, Tammy, and Scarlett to Wembley. They break into an abandoned Volvo V70 to escape nerve gas released to kill the infected, but are unable to start the car while soldiers with flamethrowers draw near. Doyle exits the car and sacrifices himself by push-starting the car and is burned alive. Scarlett escapes an Apache gunship and drives Tammy and Andy into the London Underground, where the trio continues on foot. Don ambushes and kills Scarlett, then bites Andy.
Gosh, that's
So
Annoying.
this whole Doyle
So
part was
let's-
really rough.
Let's start with all the helicopter stuff.
All right.
Yeah,
Where
so
this
like
movie-
the abandoned fairground or carnival scene, and then
Yeah,
the helicopter
yeah, yeah.
shows up and then weed whacks the zombies.
This movie
Dude.
goes
Yeah.
like Resident Evil for
It
30
does,
seconds.
it does.
Where it's just like it was one type
So-
of movie, and then for 30 seconds it's like, hey, let's be
Also-
Resident Evil for like.
This whole sequence gave me whiplash because,
Yeah.
like, up until this point, it was kind of like a standard military protocol film, you know. And then this helicopter comes in.
Get off
and
my
one of the-
helicopter.
no, hang on. One of the guys decides, oh, it would be a brilliant idea if I just jump on it. And I understand his desperation, but what's the character's name again? I forget.
I don't
The-
remember. Sorry,
the
helicopter.
lost guy.
The lost guy.
Flynn.
He's just like, I'm gonna
Flynn,
carry
yeah.
him around and fling him off my helicopter.
Yeah.
But this guy like takes this terrible ride into a zombie chopping fest. Like which by the way I loved. Like
I enjoyed
It's
it
funny-
too, but it
Yes.
was a moment out of a different movie.
It
Yeah.
was.
You know?
It's like this is a completely different film right
Especially
now.
coming off of the immediate scene where it's kind of like really cool thematically and artistically, where you have Andy and Tammy talking, and they're like, they left us again, referring to their parents as they sit in an abandoned carnival, like merry-go-round, like kind of symbolizing a loss of childhood innocence.
Oh yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
then you have an actual kind of serious conversation between Doyle and Scarlett, where they kind of
Yeah.
start meeting up on the same page, like, why are you actually
Yeah.
here? Revealing
And
a
here
little bit of
you-
character.
Yeah.
And then you
get
have
a little
a helicopter
foresh-
weed-whacking zombies.
Yeah, it really is. You get a little foreshadowing in that conversation too, because she talks about how the kids are more important than her and him,
Yeah.
and so you're like, yeah, someone.
Which I feel like they should have passed on to everyone in the group just in case. But
Yeah,
all right. So here's the thing. Logically, wrong. They're gonna die without you guys. Like, you guys should go on and live and make kids and protect your kids.
Well, guess
kids
what
aren't
happened?
surviving. They all
That's not
die.
what happened, but what are a brother and sister? Oh, you know what? Let's not go there. But
So-
Save the human race.
but honestly though, that's not
Yeah.
that's I get protecting kids. I get that, but if you're thinking from a logical standpoint, like pure
Well, also-
logic, it would be that you two try and save the kids and
The-
y'all survive as well would be the best option.
yeah.
And then after that, strangely, you two living would be the
The optimal.
Well, also
the
they.
optimal.
She never has the conversation with the kids saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, you guys have potentially have a special gene that
Could cure all this.
could cure everything."
Yeah.
But they don't know that. So they're even if her character and Doyle's die, they're not going to know that,
Yeah.
and they're not going to be able to help anything.
And this is after Andy just ran out into that alley to draw the sniper fire instead of the other guy.
Yeah.
So what'd y'all think of Doyle's death? I thought it
Oh,
was.
dude, it was epic.
It was
Yeah.
epic.
It was
but
sad, but
really
it was
rough.
epic.
Just goes to
It
an
was
everyday,
really
that's
well
how you
done.
start a Volvo. And then
Yep.
I was gonna say that's also another zombie trope. Like,
A
oh
Volvo-
no, the car won't start.
Yeah.
Is it a Volvo V70?
That's every horror movie trope ever.
I have to commend this movie again for never really committing to a hero that, oh, we can stick by this guy until the end of the
Yeah,
line.
yeah.
He's going to
The
be in the
classic
very final.
George
Yeah.
R.R. Martin.
I like that this movie kind of just passes the torch to
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
And
different
I do
characters.
Exactly. I like that they have multiple point of views where the first movie was just basically one point of view.
Yeah.
there are
And
no
his-
heroes in this movie. I'm just gonna say.
His death was like anticlimactic, but I don't know,
He's-
perfect
I felt-
in a
He's
weird way. It
hero
was
in
just
my eyes.
It was a triple threat. I mean, they're literally trapped in a car, and that's already claustrophobic enough. And then you have zombies all around. And as soon as you get away from the zombies, then you have your own guys that are just doing scorched earth, literally. The gas,
Yep.
and then the fire. And it's just like, wow, this is like, I can't imagine being in that car myself. Just frantic,
Right.
like just absolutely
Yeah.
frantic.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
And then
And-
he's like, I'll meet you there. And I'm like, you're such a liar. And he gets out and then just starts pushing the car.
He has to comfort them enough to go with his plan.
I was literally thinking, well, the second he gets out of this car, it's where the movie dies. And
Yeah.
sure
He's
enough,
dead.
that's where it died.
Yeah, no, I was about to say too, as soon as he died, that's when I realized I stopped caring.
Yep.
But that was
and
on the
also-
second watching.
I actually I liked that they made this decision
Yeah,
at this point.
I think it was good, actually.
I think that it adds to the danger of what
Yeah.
happens afterwards, which was honestly the director's mentality. And this might upset some feminists, but they actually originally had Rose Byrne as the character who's pushing the car, and she is burned to death.
Yeah.
And then Jeremy Renner goes on.
Yeah.
But they switched it because they felt like it would
Physically
they would seem
stronger
more,
person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they would seem more vulnerable
Yeah.
if it were Rose Byrne and the kids.
Well, you
That
could
does
also
make more
say
sense.
it does make sense too if you got poison gas, then typically a Delta Force special operator is going to have some kind of training to
Yeah. Yeah.
physically resist gas, the
Yeah.
effects on the body. Maybe not completely, obviously, but
yeah, it's like he knew that his chances of survival were slim, but his were at least better than anyone else. You know, so
Yeah.
it makes sense. Yeah.
All right, then we get funny
You want
enough
to talk
Scarlett's,
about the tunnel?
Scarlett's death.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's not far
Oh my
before
gosh,
she.
I hated everything from here on in. Everything.
Really?
Reese.
I'm
Well,
surprised.
it always-
I
Okay,
thought
no,
it was
you
cool.
can't be
So-
surprised. David hates anything that is really sad. or
well, we
disappointing.
talked
not even
about
sad,
in
it's
the
just
first
stupid.
movie,
I
you've
wasn't
always got a
even
tunnel
scared.
scene.
It was just dumb.
I didn't say it was scary. I just said it was sad.
It wasn't
See,
sad.
they're-
I
they're
didn't
like-
care about them dying at all.
What? Yeah.
Are
Here's
you
the
sure?
here's the difference.
Yeah.
There are a lot of movies where a character dies and it's momentous and it adds to the depth of the story. But for the sake of this movie, and there are a number of other ones out there, it just seems like, kill for shock value. Kill for shock value. How many do we have to kill for shock value until people know this movie as the watch?
I didn't
don't
think
think
her
it was
death was as
shocking.
shocking as Jeremy Renner's.
Yeah, I think
It
we're
was
just
more-
still shell shocked from Doyle dying.
What was
Yeah.
the point of her
well,
dying?
Well, here, yeah, that's what I was
What did
going
it
to
serve?
say.
It was
There-
it was honestly to make the kids seem even more vulnerable, I think.
Yeah, but
whereas
the-
they are on their own now.
The point, okay, I get that, but it just seemed like they're. Whenever I say shock value, I'm not saying their death was shocking, but the fact, like, oh, they killed this person too. That's shocking in a different way. Like, what's that movie where they just like, oh, that person died in a gory way.
Game
but-
of Thrones?
Yeah, I guess Game of Thrones fits this a little bit. They had a lot of people like, oh great, they really had to stab that lady's belly.
The thing is, though,
Like-
this movie is trying to show that no one is safe.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
but
think
they
that's
already
that.
did that when they killed him, and they already did that with the initial
Yeah,
outbreak.
well,
they don't
did
need
you
to
see
do that
how
anymore.
So-
deadly this virus is?
Noah,
I mean,
would you
it's
prefer
just-
plot armor completely protecting the main characters and everything?
No, I see. They already
did.
killed.
The
They
kids-
already killed.
They're the
killed
plot
the main
armor.
character and the kids. Yeah, like
If
David
they killed
said.
the kids, there you go. There you have a
I mean,
movie,
there's plot
and I'd
armor
be
when
happy.
the Apache helicopter is just completely missing by a mile, all those rounds shooting after the Volvo.
Okay,
yeah.
can I'm just going to jump right back into her death scene right before, where they're going into this dark tunnel and they have to go down this escalator, and she's kind of like telling them where to go with this night vision, and they're freaking out. Somehow they trip, and both of them trip at separate times, right, one after the other, and then they just completely... They go out of scene. They somehow fall a mile away from her.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Kids, where are you?" Immediately, I guess they decided to get up and run away immediately after falling.
Yeah.
Also, if you're going to bring up the point about the good guys having plot armor, what the hell kind of plot armor does their dad have?
Yeah.
Yeah, he just magically teleports even though they've been driving like maniacs.
Yeah.
Frickin', he's there from the beginning.
But I stand by that statement earlier where there's something of him still in
So he's
that
the
zombie.
Didn't really seem that way.
He's the plot
Yeah, how did
zombie.
he turn into a badass?
No, he's
I don't know.
he's the plot zombie. I
Well,
feel
he's-
like there was a trend where in other zombie films they would always have that one zombie you recognized that keeps going on throughout the film.
Yeah.
Kind of like Land of the Dead.
Yeah.
Oh, they did
Where
it so
he's-
much better,
he's the
though.
same guy. Yeah, that's campy though. That was their intention to be kind of campy.
Because they
I
could have
love
swapped.
those ones.
They could have swapped him for any other zombie, Reese, and it would have been just as impactful.
So
I
I
think-
think my argument for his character is that he's supposed to represent a little more symbolically how they're trying to handle the way their family went and kind of their
So they're dealing
upset
with their
with their
father.
father.
Like the...
and I think
I
that
guess.
yeah, but the thing is it seems symbolic because he shows up in that one scene where his son Andy sees him and then Doyle comes over and asks if he's okay and then suddenly Dawn disappears. So
Yeah.
it's like that's not what a typical zombie would do.
I feel
You
like
know what would
we're
almost
having
make
to
it make
force
more
a reason
sense
on
here?
this.
Yeah, so no, the thing is it's like there's not it doesn't seem like they really thought a whole lot about it, but they're keeping him there to suspend that weird drama with
You still have the
him
pursuit, the chase, kind of
abandoning
keeping the tension
mother.
alive.
Yes.
I do think that if they had one thing that would have made that really interesting and would have driven the point home is if they finally looked at after he dies, if they looked at the body
yeah, and
and
it's
it
something
wasn't
else.
him.
Yeah.
That
What
would
would've been-
actually have been really cool and
Yeah.
interesting.
That'd be
Or what would have been
interesting,
cool is if Dawn is some kind of alpha zombie who's mutated and he actually senses the blood that contains the cure, which is why he savagely attacks the
interesting,
wife in the
yeah.
beginning.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
true.
he's following basically the scent of the special blood that could be the end of the zombies.
Maybe
bad.
that
The
is
writing
maybe
sucks.
that is what it is.
But-
They just didn't write it properly.
maybe they didn't write it in there, but the problem is I think they're trying to pursue two different kinds of film and
Yeah.
not able to write it together.
Tunnel scene a
Tunnel
little.
scene?
Yeah. So what
Yeah.
David was saying is with like the night vision scene was very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of contrasts when Doyle was in charge. He would, people would be in a line. There's order. This is how we run. This is how we go. And then later on, Scarlett's in charge, and it's just kind of frantic. And
Yeah.
typically, I would say the person with the night vision is going to be in the lead of the chain instead
Right.
of, hey, you walk in front of me.
In
I'm
the
just going to
back.
stare at the back of your head. And then I think it was just for the eye shine kind of creepy effect, so they could turn
Yeah,
around and look
yeah.
at you and kind of unnerve the audience a little bit.
The
But
eye
it was
shine,
just like
and then the audience kind of expecting there to be another face,
A jump
popping
scare or
up in
something
the-
like that,
yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of frustrating. And then, like David said, they just stumble and land a mile away, and then call out Andy really weirdly, and then he never
He
answers.
somehow wanders off for some reason.
Yeah,
Ugh, Andy.
All right, let's move on. Tammy shoots Don before he can kill Andy, who remains symptom-free but an unknown carrier of the rage virus. They continue to the stadium and are picked up by a reluctant Flynn, who flies them across the English Channel to France, as instructed by Doyle. 28 days later, a French-accented voice requesting help is heard from the radio in Flynn's abandoned helicopter. A group of the infected are then seen running through a tunnel that, as they emerge into the open, is revealed to be the exit of the Paris Metro.
You know,
Trocadero.
because you can see the Eiffel Tower.
Station, to finish off what I was saying, with a view across the Seine to the nearby Eiffel Tower, indicating that the virus has spread to Europe. All right, so Don is dead. Surprise, surprise.
I did like so they see Flynn in the middle of the stadium just kind of chilling there playing his Game Boy.
Yeah.
And then The helicopter kind of escape was cool, like visually, like they fly over Dover, the cliffs of Dover, and
You get
then
another
Calais, and then
You get another glimpse at the scope of this movie too.
Yeah.
I feel like, which is
Right.
expanded.
Yeah.
and I guess it kind of pushes the desperation factor where it's like, okay, so they're just fleeing in this helicopter with who knows how much fuel, and I looked up
Yeah.
the mileage from London to Dover to Calais to Paris, and it's like 236 miles, 380 kilometers, and the maximum
helicopter do that?
average fuel capacity for a helicopter is 250 miles or 400 kilometers. So that just
Maybe
squeaks
they
under the
stopped
realism
somewhere.
thing. That's just me being crazy, but it could
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, this is another thing where you just wish that Scarlett's character had at least informed the kids about their significance.
Yeah.
Because obviously the reason this carries over to France is because he's a carrier and he didn't know it. So
So did y'all get a
Yeah.
question mark at the end where it kind of close-ups on Andy looking out the helicopter window, and then it puts that slow motion effect on it that always signifies a zombie? So do you think
Yeah.
he had a delayed reaction and actually did turn while he was in the helicopter?
He
I
bit
think
somebody
maybe
by
it's a
accident.
hint that he might turn other people. Maybe.
yeah, maybe. I think at least they chose France where it's like a little more believable that it would spread all that way, but you know, it's whatever.
Yeah. All right.
It's a zombie movie.
All right, let's take a quick break here, and on the flip side, we're going to talk about this movie, the franchise as a whole, whether this helped or hurt the franchise, and we're going to give our brief reviews and scores. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back, guys.
You're welcome.
Are y'all ready to review 28 weeks later?
Not
Before
really.
that, I did a little extra research for fun here and kind of overlaid some meaning on things.
Oh yeah, give it to us before we go into these reviews.
So last episode, 28 Days, we had Leoko on in the background, and that was kind of a fun little jaunt looking down that. I looked into the names of all the characters in this movie, or the main characters, and kind of looked up their etymology and was looking for some patterns, see if there's anything behind it. So you have the young boy, Andy, comes from Andrew, which is a Greek root for meaning man, and he kind of represents the future of mankind with his blood.
Adam and Eve and all that.
Tammy, his sister, is the feminine form of Thomas, and that means twin, so it kind of mirrors Andy, being, they both have the same blood, kind of the future, and it also kind of calls back to Romulus and Remus, the
Okay.
twins founding the new society of Rome.
Right.
when you get to Doyle, I
so-
know that one.
So then you have Don, which is short for Donald, meaning world ruler. And so he's kind of representing the head of the zombies as the new rulers of the earth, and then struggling against Andy and mankind for the top spot of the food chain.
Okay.
You have Alice, which is the mom. Alice means noble, and she kind of has the first introduction of the noble blood that resists the infection.
Right.
You have General Stone, that's kind of on the nose there. Stone, he's inflexible, all about the code red, no exceptions for survivors. Scarlet, obviously the color scarlet represents blood. She's a medical scientist that works with the blood and the pathology. And then you have Sergeant Doyle.
Danny Boyle.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, Sergeant comes through French from Latin meaning servant. He kind of serves to help keep the kids survive. And this is a bit of a stretch, but Doyle comes from anglicized Irish, referencing Danish Vikings, which were like basically strangers or foreigners to the land. So he's a U.S. person in England, kind of bring a new paradigm into the world.
Weird.
Yeah,
That was a little bit of
A
stretch.
lot of
I had-
unnecessary stuff there.
All I read was that they took the D from Danny and the oil from Boyle, and basically,
His was
Rammed
really a
them
stretch. I
together.
just put that one on there.
So the,
And
It
all
was
of that
Danny
probably
Boyle.
was not even intentional.
director of the
but
first
I just
movie.
thought it was fun.
yeah, it's interesting because it's plausible because there are so many stories that are kind of built around naming of characters. Like writers put a whole lot of weight into the way they name a character.
yeah. All right, guys, let's do our brief reviews of this movie with your numbered score. I realize we did not put our numbers in a bowl this time.
That's okay.
But I'm just gonna trust you guys with your ratings. So David, what'd you think of this
Oh
movie?
boy, me again first. Yeah, back to the old normal.
The old normal.
The old normal. I was originally, I didn't write it down, but I was going to put down 4.5.
Whoa,
wow, okay.
that's so low.
Yeah, this
David
movie
really
sucked.
did not like
Oh my
this.
gosh.
I would not watch it again. I'm going to start this off by saying this is worse than Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
No.
Actually.
No.
Yes.
So you're admitting that all the others were...
I just knew one of you guys were going to bring it up, so I'm bringing it up first.
4.5.
7 was a good
I would
score
rather
for
watch
Tomb of the
that
Dragon
movie
Emperor.
than this.
Preemptive strike.
Boom. I'm on top of it.
So give us your reason at least. What the hell?
It lost me. It did not. Just because they can put some money into the cinematography,
David
doesn't make
like
up for the
feeling
writing.
uncomfortable.
I didn't even feel uncomfortable. It was just dumb. It was
You're-
it was
yeah,
just dumb.
okay.
It wasn't
All
that.
right.
No,
I
he's
didn't
right.
like it.
All
I
right.
I honestly was lost after I realized that none of this made sense, and then the actors were good, but the plot holes of this movie lost me. I know I'm being a little overcritical, but at the same time, it's the content mixed with it, I guess. But it lost me, and I didn't want to even continue watching it, and I had to force myself to.
Wow. So not David's type of movie.
Okay.
No.
All right, Irina.
So for me, I'm rating it the same exact rating I gave 28 Days Later, which was a 7, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I do think it's an improvement, but in a kind of in a different direction. And it has almost just as many plot holes as 28 Days Later does. I almost don't even consider it a sequel because the style is so different. I don't know. There are a lot of things that I appreciated that they changed in this, and I like that they kind of reframed it to focus on the zombie aspect more.
Yeah.
The first one lacked a lot of character development, which I was missing, but this one I felt like I was more invested in the characters than the first.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think 7 is about accurate because
Okay.
it's enough to keep me interested and appreciating aspects of it, but at the same time it's not one of my top films. I'll
Yeah.
probably forget a lot of the details within a year, but
It's a lot more reasonable of a score than
I
David's.
at least know
Not memorable.
Yeah, the thing
not
is,
memorable at all.
I at least know that if I wanted to watch a zombie film, because I'm actually really partial to zombie movies. I love them, and I think this one is, I don't know, I would put it
Compared
on
to
in the
other
background.
zombie movies that you watch, because I know you like zombie movies. Would this even rank in your top zombie movies?
No, it's not. Because I have a lot of higher rated zombie movies, Shaun of the Dead being one of them.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I can't think of any zombie movie that I've watched that is worse. That's the thing.
what?
Whoa. Are
So-
you freaking serious
Really?
right now?
Name one.
Wait, what?
Wait,
Not you. Reed.
No, he
Name one.
thinks.
Yeah, name another one.
There's so many.
Yeah, exactly. Name one.
Which one?
Resident Evil?
You would say Resident Evil is worse than this.
Reese, you're the
Yes.
biggest fan of Resident Evil.
I would
no,
say-
but
Reese, you're like the biggest advocate.
I would say the Dawn of the Dead remake is worse than this.
I
would
disagree.
say
I disagree as well.
Okay, that's fine. I still think that movie's good. But there's so many zombie movies that are not as good
Exactly.
as this.
No,
Okay,
there are a
so
lot of them,
hang
but
on. When
this
you
is
think
bad.
about it, though, this zombie movie does kind of rival other zombie movies because when you go into one, you're kind of expecting a little cheese. You're kind of expecting a suspension of belief in what's happening. All you really ask for is, I want to follow these characters. I want to see people get picked off. And they have their own unique interpretation of the zombies.
Okay, actually, that does make me realize what it is that bothers me.
Okay.
What?
It's that they don't pick a lane, stealing words from Reese's mouth. They are like, let's be realistic. This is how it would be in a real world zombie situation. And then other times they're like, let's drive a
I disagree.
helicopter into zombies. And like, it doesn't work. They don't mesh. And I don't like
So
that.
I disagree. I think from the get-go, I don't find it as a believable situation, but it's at least taking a different scenario from the other zombie movies. Like there's always the one where, oh yeah, they all congregate at the mall, you know? It's they're
Well, that's
taking a
leaning
step.
into it.
Yeah, hang on. There's taking a step away from the original, you know, Night of the Living Dead, things like that. They've made their own zombie, which was in 28 Days Later. But in this, they're kind of taking a separate scenario where they believe it's already followed through its trajectory of the zombie virus. And so they're trying to repopulate the area. And I haven't seen that done with other zombie films. It's always in the middle of it or just as it's starting. I don't know. I think it was taking a step in a new direction of where we are at. Like, how do you handle a pandemic or a contagion when you think it's already over, picking up the pieces afterwards, but then it like resurfacing.
That's why I was saying I think they're trying to be realistic. I think they're trying to think about how it would play out.
No, it's just a different scenario, a different part in the timeline, but it's not fully believable.
All right, I'm going to throw it over to Noah.
5.5. I realize there are some unique perspectives on this movie, and they bring in, a good amount of things that are interesting ideas, but everything in this movie, to me, feels so forced. It feels like they're trying too hard to get this thing to go to this thing. Like, I have a neat idea. Let me make it do this through this ridiculous way.
Actually, Noah, I had a note that fits in with this. It's like, this feels like a video game sort of mentality. It's like, all right, this is the objective. Then go to this place. Somehow that leads to this place. And then go to the next place.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Everything is so miraculously, like...
It's a zombie movie.
Going together. Yeah, but like, in a zombie movie, it's...
Yeah, okay.
You can say that about any movie. Like, it's a
movie.
It's a fantasy movie. It's a movie. Yeah, but like you still
That's
have to.
why I'm usually
do things-
so.
You have to sell it. It didn't sell it to me.
Like, I don't know. I just thought that like, this brutal scene is meant to make you be shocked, and it's animalistic. Whatever. Now he's gonna kill a bunch of people, and there's gonna be mass hysteria, and no one's gonna be coordinated. But somehow main evil dude is not gonna die throughout all of this, and he's just gonna come back to haunt the whole people the whole time. I just thought that was dumb. Like, make it psychological or make it not psychological.
Pick a lane.
That's the picking the lane more so to me than the other. They don't know what kind of zombie movie they want to go for.
Okay.
And I don't know. It just like
Y'all are really disappointing me today.
well, just kidding.
I feel like you're gonna disappoint me.
To me, this was just kind of a gore fest with like, I've got a couple of good ideas. Let's
That's
see how
right
we can
up
work them in.
Reese's alley.
Yeah.
I know it is. That's why he's disappointed. But I've just never been fond of using blood for shock.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Especially when they add more blood than actually would happen in a real situation.
I didn't actually think there was
It
a whole
wasn't
lot
that
of blood.
excessive.
I
No,
don't think zombies are a real situation to kind of have a baseline against.
Okay, but well, for example, the eye gouging scene.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Blood does not spurt out of your eyes like that.
It does in movies, Noah.
Have you
Sure it
tried
does.
it?
No, it's just how it works. I mean, I don't know. There's
Yeah.
If TCU horned frogs can shoot blood out of their eyelids, then I'm pretty sure zombies can.
I don't know. It's just like there's
It's
just
part of the virus.
He's using too much magic, so
there's
it's
just
causing stress.
you
on
can
Yes.
convey the image of a lot of these scenes without using excessive blood,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it would
But
still
if it
gain
doesn't
the
belong
same
in a zombie
point.
movie, where does it belong?
I don't know. I feel like, in my
Jaws.
opinion, I think they should have
Would you
kept
say
with the
you're just averse
psychological
to-
side of zombie films and steer away from carnage.
I
That's just
disagree.
my opinion.
That's fine. That's
You-
Yeah, yeah,
well,
no.
you've always been a carnage lover.
Reese,
So
you are a
Reese
shark.
really-
like you
Reese really
absolutely
is.
love carnage.
So,
I prefer
The two things I know about Reese
little
as far as
different kind of
taste
movie.
are carnage and shock value. So
That is
That's
right
why
up
this is
your alley,
perfect for him.
baby.
He probably gave this an 8.5.
Wearing your
We'll
classic
see.
Godzilla shirt
We'll
right
see.
now.
We'll see. All right, AJ, your review.
All right, so I gave this a 6.5,
All right.
same score as the first movie,
Okay.
where I feel like they kind of traded up on production value and traded down on the thematic side of things.
right.
Man, Andrew, I thought you were on our side. Dang it.
So here's the thing. I'll steal a line from Noah there.
Here's the thing.
Basically, I wish they kind of took the good of both movies and combined them into one. I wish that the first
Yeah.
movie had the same plot, kind of themes, but with the production value of the second, with a little bit of the star power of the second. It just, the first watching, I was on Reese's side where I was emotionally engaged and I was kind of along for the whole ride, and I really could get on board with especially Doyle's character and Scarlett to some extent, even though some of her line delivery was kind of flat.
Yeah.
then second viewing, I was just picking it apart plot wise, like David is just like, this is not realistic, you idiot. Why are you doing this? Doesn't make sense. Yada, yada, yada. So I kind of took the balance of both of those, and it's like, you know, it is a zombie movie, and it's not fair to any movie to make it completely realistic,
right?
Especially a zombie movie,
right?
Especially knowing my personality, where I'm going to pick apart anything for realism.
Yeah.
So I did pull that rein in a little bit, but it just kind of felt like the movie, even from an overall story arc, like there was no resolution really. Everyone died, and it's not like a Game of Thrones where the journey was completely amazing, the character development was completely amazing. So it's like, what was the point of watching this? I thought we were going to get somewhere with this franchise as a total story. Is like, hey, you know, we've got this thing in the first movie, it kind of develops. We see kind of a microcosm side of things, and then a little bit bigger scale, the macro side of things in this movie, with a cure possibly being found, and it could potentially go somewhere. And then they just completely shut that down at the end, where maybe I was looking at that kind of a big picture for where this was going.
Right.
So I feel like enjoyment level was about the same as the first movie.
Yeah, that's how I felt.
What really helped that was the filmography and the production value. There were some really good shots artistically in this movie, not nearly as what were in the first. And I just wish the first could have captured that with better.
That's where all
better
the
tech.
points in this movie went to, was they sold it primarily on the fact that they had good production value.
I think
But
yeah, go ahead.
I also I can't agree with Noah, you know, with the gore factor and like the goring of the eyes out, and it's like that is kind of a motif that came pervaded from the first movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a zombie movie. There needs to be, especially something called rage. Like it's I'm just surprised that even Alice, the mom, survived as long as she did with, you know, an infection called rage, where these people are going ballistic and just
We
tearing
still don't
everything
know
apart.
what happened with her. We don't know.
No,
Yeah.
we don't.
But yeah, and it's kind of beleaguered by plot holes and stuff like that just doesn't make sense.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it was enjoyable enough to kind of put it in the same level
Yeah.
as the first one.
If there had been a following film to this, I would have wanted to know Alice's story after the fact. You know, like between that time where we didn't see her and didn't know she was still alive. I think that would have been an interesting story.
If you gave Alex Garland the same writing spot, but then just upped the production value, I think we would have had a really good film.
Right.
Yeah. I agree.
I guess that goes into your score, Reese.
All right, this might be the first movie where I give the highest score to.
Interesting.
Yeah, I gave this movie an
8.5.
8.
Okay.
It's gonna be an 8.
You're so
and
wrong.
That's what I've stuck with. So I hear you on some of the complaints. I do think this movie is more dim-witted than the first movie.
Yeah.
But I also think that it is a genre shift. I think the first movie is a horror drama, whereas the second one is a horror action.
Yeah.
This movie is very action driven. It is almost a theme park ride of
Right.
sorts, where you're just being the torch is being passed from character to character to character through this new zombie outbreak. And I think every single sequence in this movie is executed perfectly. Like you never know who's going to survive. You don't know what the stakes are. You know that anyone could drop at any moment. And I found that to be thrilling.
Yeah.
I like there not being a central character to the story. I like that I guess
Yeah.
I'm with this Dawn.
Yeah.
Oh, now I guess I'm with the kids. Now I guess I'm with what's his name? The
You almost
Jeremy
said
Renner.
G-Mon.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
Doyle.
Doyle. Yeah.
Doyle.
It's just this.
So you like not having a central character
Yes,
to root
I
for?
like it.
No, I did like that as
Yeah.
well, the point of view shift
it's-
versus one central character.
It's
If I-
pandemonium, but
Yeah.
it's controlled pandemonium, and there's all these interesting new revelations throughout
Yeah.
the movie where the dynamic is shifted.
Yeah.
And I liked being challenged in that way. I don't know if the movie's trying to say anything particularly like the first movie was, but I know that I was entertained throughout the entire film, and I thought all of the sequences were executed almost perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the acting is really good. I literally think the only downfall is just, as y'all have
writing?
stated, some of the writing. And I'm not nearly as bothered by it as you
It
are.
does fit your standard thing. If Reese would, like, we haven't actually done the movie, but if we did something like what you brought, Resident Evil or something like that, I feel like Reese would give that an 8 too. Like,
No,
that's-
I would not. Look,
So
look
yeah.
this you should when you go into this movie, if you go in as like I'm watching an action movie, it's not it's stupid, but it's not as stupid as I don't know.
It doesn't give me what I want out of a zombie movie.
So the thing is that it's from as a zombie movie lover or enthusiast, I find it's very satisfying as a zombie film. Like I would put it on again just to enjoy a zombie movie.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I have little zombie movie marathons while I'm drawing.
She does.
Now, Reese.
Yeah, what's up?
So, Reese, you gave Girl with the Dragon Tattoo 8.5. What is the rationale of only half a point difference between those two?
Will this be your
Girl
Tune
with the
with the
Dragon
Dragon?
Tattoo has a different goal. It's really shooting for the stars. I think these are judged on different planes in a weird way. I think if you compare 28 Weeks Later to other action movies, action horror, which is a completely different subgenre than what Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is, I would say 28 Weeks Later ranks fairly high. If you were to put Girl with the Dragon Tattoo in the same category as 28 Weeks Later, yes, I think Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is far superior. Yeah. But it is playing against different types of films.
Right.
I just feel like in terms of action
I didn't mean to
horror...
put you on the spot.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
I think in terms of action horror, 28 Weeks Later is surprisingly high. And honestly, I think it is a high quality production. I just think it makes a few stupid decisions. Yeah. And that's why I knock it down just a little bit, but I was thoroughly entertained by this movie, and there was never a moment where I was like, "Oh, I'm not having a good time," because I was consistently on board with it.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
They keep you interested because they keep jumping to different scenarios and different scenes where you're like, what is the potential for horror in this zombie situation?
Yeah, and it has me. I want to know the future of like what a third movie would look like, because this is so different from the first one. But I think it's also well executed. I actually reviewed. I gave this the same score as the first movie. I want to see what. Would they make another dramatic shift for a third film? Would it be another kind of subgenre, but also horror and something else? Yeah. You know?
Yeah, I'm with you
there. It doesn't always have to be different.
So what would y'all think if... this is what I would have liked to have seen out of this movie. If instead of... 5 movies. Ha, ha, ha. No, actually.
I think this could have been
this was
spread
fine
out
with
into
just
3.
one. But
Get it over ambitious with one.
But no, imagine if instead of it being, pandemonium like it was in the first one, where it just spread everywhere, what if instead they toned it down to one facility, do a new take on the kind of zombie thing, go full on thriller with it, and have the dad be like the only zombie. And like they're stuck in this big building.
Just in one facility or something?
Yeah.
And he just picks them off one by one.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Like, wouldn't that make it, that whole zombie kind of thing, just change the perspective
what if
quite
they
a
had
bit?
like them?
Was that kind of how Train to Busan was?
A little kind
bit.
of, yeah. It was on a train.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Well, confined singular space.
Yeah.
But I think that would be much more interesting to me. It would make it a little more scary in that way while they're still trying to stave off an outbreak.
Yeah.
So the thing about the zombie genre is that you kind of have to cut it a lot of slack, because it originally started as just campy, fun movies. Like I know it reflected some of the societal anxieties at the time, but I think that just leaves a lot of room for people to just enjoy the genre. I don't think it's ever really trying to achieve critical acclaim. It's just like, if it's fun and enjoyable and you get what you want out of these zombie pickoffs of the main characters, then it's successful.
Although I would say Night of the Living Dead is a surprisingly relevant social commentary.
Yeah.
And World War Z, which we might talk about.
Maybe talk about it. I don't know.
Although
It's
you
up
brought
in
it
the
up,
air.
AJ, I would definitely like to talk about Train to Busan if we ever could.
There's a sequel coming out for that.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's called Peninsula. Yeah.
All right. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, I'm so stoked right now.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
honestly.
I haven't seen whatever.
Also,
this
who's
movie-
You need
who's the
to.
person that
So-
introduced you to that film?
You.
Me.
Take all the credit.
And it
I
was
will.
good.
Real quick, Noah, what was your score again?
5.5.
Okay, so I'm just running numbers real quick. So whenever y'all want those, let me know.
Yeah, we'll do
Alright.
that at the end of the episode. All right,
We'll
let's
call you.
talk about this movie as a franchise or as
Okay.
part of a franchise. So, critically, Rotten Tomatoes, this movie got a 71%
All right.
with an audience
bad.
score of 67%.
How does
Wow.
that compare to the first one?
It's comparable.
Okay.
The
I seem to
first
remember it
one
was
was like
about
85
kinda
or
the
something
same.
around
Alright.
there.
Which is really
I'm-
good for
yeah.
the type of movie.
All right.
IMDb, it was at a 7.0, which that's a audience-based score. Metacritic, it got a 78, which is incredibly high for Metacritic, and a audience score of 7.0.
Yeah.
So overall, positive
Okay.
reception.
Yeah. yeah.
Unlike you dumbos.
You're lucky that I gave it such a low score to balance out your ridiculously high score.
I think your score was ridiculously low.
That's why we're meeting in the middle here, bud.
All right, let's talk about box office.
Okay.
Y'all ready for this?
Money.
You ready for this?
Yeah, money.
So much money, yo.
So the budget on this movie was $15 million, which
Not
is
so much money, yo.
It's a 6 to 10 million more, 6 to 10 million increase from 28 Days Later,
That's
based off
actually impressive. Actually,
the reports on 28 Days Later were that it was either 5 to $9 million.
Okay.
So yeah, 15 million, still very low budget,
Yeah.
especially considering what they achieved in this movie.
I was gonna say I actually thought the budget would be substantially higher than that.
Yeah, so you box office guys, what's y'all's prediction?
I have a guess.
Okay, worldwide.
70. Oh.
Worldwide,
73 million. still.
73. Okay,
Yeah.
David?
All right, I didn't even think about the math too quickly here. I'm gonna go with 50. Well, 110.
100, wow, 50, 110. Instant
Quite a
double.
jump.
AJ, do you have any? Did you?
65.
And Arena?
I'll go with 50.
50. AJ, right on the money.
Dang.
65 million
Oh.
worldwide.
All right.
Yeah, so more than.
What was the for? What does that mean?
He's surprised.
I was actually just guessing.
Okay.
he So this movie quadrupled its budget, which
Alright.
while not as successful as the first one, which grossed 86 million worldwide, it is still considered a success. So that leads us to why was there not a sequel to this movie? Because it was still successful,
Somebody
wasn't
realized how bad it was.
No.
it?
No.
No.
I personally feel like they just sensed that it had run its course. You know, like there's. I don't. It doesn't
and
feel like there's
How
a
are they
lot
gonna
to
do 28
go
months? That's such a
from
long
here.
time.
Yeah, 28 months is kind of
Because
a stretch.
that's honestly, they kind of put themselves in a hole
Yeah.
just from that. Like, oh no, what's the next step up?
28 weeks and
Yeah.
28
It
days
was
later.
28 months was the planned sequel, and it's
Yeah.
been in a constant back and forth. People have been trying to get it made for quite some time, honestly, and it just hasn't really formulated.
Yeah.
Now, have Boyle and Garland production, they're really for kind of one-offs, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
so
they are.
that's kind of a new thing for something to spin off of something they've done
Yeah.
and just kind of taking from something that didn't intend to start out as a franchise, I would say.
Right.
So this was taken from Wikipedia, so as was our whole plot synopsis, which I did not state earlier. But on the 14th of January in 2015, Alex Garland stated, and this is a quote, "We've just started talking about it seriously. We've got an idea. Danny Boyle and producer Andrew McDonald and I have been having quite serious conversations about it, so it is a possibility. It's complicated. There's a whole bunch of reasons why it's complicated, which are boring, so I won't go into, but there's a possibility." Also adding, "It's more likely to be 28 months than 28 years. 28 months gives you one more place to go," hinting at the possibility of a fourth film.
Ah, okay.
What's wrong with 28 centuries?
Yeah, so that was in 2015, and in June of 2019, just last year, Boyle confirmed that he and Garland had recently met to discuss and begin preparation on a third film.
See, I think this would be a good time to revisit it.
Yeah, and just 2 days ago,
Yeah.
Imogen Poots stated interest in returning to the franchise.
Okay, interesting.
So she was in
so
the
they
second
would,
movie.
They were thinking about continuing the
Somebody's low
somewhat
on money.
of the
And I always
main
kind of
cast.
was guessing that might be a twist at the end where we're all kind of saying Andy, since he has the heterochromia and the
Right.
eyes, that he's the obvious successor with the cure. But then there's a twist that he dies at the end and Tammy goes on.
Oh yeah,
That's kind of the twist I was looking for. That
Right.
obviously
Yeah.
didn't happen.
it didn't.
Or that we know of.
Unfortunate.
So that leads me to: do y'all think this franchise is dead or dormant?
You're kind of loading the deck here, considering you just read us what the director said. but
Sounds a bit like dormant.
sounds dormant to me.
Yep.
It's hard to say because the last time he had talked about it was in 2015, so it might be another.
Well, no, 2019.
No, I
They
know,
re-
but you mentioned 2015 at another point.
But recently, 2019, they've actually begun serious
Okay.
work on
All right.
the third film.
Maybe he feels like there's enough
wait.
distance
They were
that he
talking
can make something fresh again.
So dormant. Are we in consensus here? This is a
Yeah,
dormant
it sounds
franchise.
dormant.
It
I
could
think
rise
it's
again.
I think
Yeah.
it's dormant, especially
Rise of
with
the Phoenix.
what's going on currently. I think that a zombie
Oh,
film
yeah,
would
it'd
be
be-
definitely in.
strikingly relevant.
Yeah, and
Strike while the iron's
it
hot.
does make me curious because even if they hadn't talked about it, I would want to know what they would do with a following film after
Oh, yeah.
this. I would totally watch it.
Yeah.
I watch all zombie movies.
So I think we're all in agreement. This is a dormant franchise. I think we're all gonna see
I think
some
we're
more
gonna-
28.
We might see one. Yeah.
something
28
later.
something.
So if we're saying it's dormant, are we going to say honorable death or dishonorable death?
We're gonna say dishonorable death, I guess.
Yeah.
Or
Well, I would say if you have hope or somewhat optimism for a future film, wouldn't that be
honorable.
Well, it's
I don't
not,
know.
It's not dead.
It's not dead. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can't really give it one or the other because
Yeah, it's
dishonorable
neither.
would mean that it killed itself in a really bad way.
no,
it's,
they're
uh,
deserters.
It's playing dead.
There it is.
It's playing.
No, they're
There you go.
zombies. They can't die.
All right. So you want to give us the numbers breakdown, AJ?
Yeah, so this average between us, this individual movie, we have a 6.3,
All right.
and then with 28 days later, we had an average of 7.2.
So are you
Yes.
saying? So are you saying
Franchise.
I saved this movie from a 5 rating?
Or David anchored it.
I may have done that on purpose. I
David-
really wanted that first movie to be better than this one.
David,
And it-
Really?
it deserved
Interesting.
it.
Okay.
David, you're the villain of this podcast.
No,
No.
So-
you are
okay.
the one.
Nevertheless,
I think-
we have
well,
a
we're
franchise
two
average of
heads, I guess.
6.8,
Overall,
Six-
which is
Okay,
kind
so-
of around our 7 average.
6.8 on the 28 franchise.
I
So
would
the-
I would allow it.
the thing is, this is.
Good.
I feel like this franchise is pretty successful, and even though it halted for a while because the first one was made on a very low budget, but it struck a chord with people. And that inspired further zombie movies, including this follow-up, which wasn't received poorly.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
zombie movies are still very prevalent, and they a lot of them sort of follow in the footsteps of what this started. So
Yeah.
I think overall,
Right.
pretty honorable.
I will say that this is the first franchise where everyone but Irina has been drinking some variation of spiked Kool-Aid.
It's almost as if some other people actually can see the truth, man.
Well, so the thing is, you can give it kind of a lower rating, but you have to admit that it at least it did something.
No,
It
I
sparked
can
an
I can agree
interest.
with that. Obviously, reading the scores, how much money they put into it versus how much they got out, they did work,
Yeah.
and the production value was good. I cannot
Yeah.
fault the production value.
Yeah.
It just did not strike a chord with
Yeah,
me.
all right. I can concede
All right.
to that.
Well, that closes out our 28 weeks later and our 28 franchise
Oh my
discussions
gosh.
overall. Yeah.
Wait, are we actually on 28?
Yep. Yeah, this is our... If you follow our original episodes, this is technically our 28th episode.
Don't-
We didn't
weird.
even plan that. It's just weird.
28 weeks
Oh, I thought that was
later.
planned.
No,
Actually,
it actually
we-
wasn't.
We
It's
do this.
been-
We do this weekly, so
We only had to cut 5 episodes secretly to make it work.
So
Yeah.
we actually did 28 weeks in 28 episodes and did this one by
Yeah,
accident.
it was accidental.
That is
I
so
swear.
weird.
I swear it was an
It
accident.
was all me.
Good job, Irina.
So yeah, you can find our podcast on most popular podcast streaming apps: Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Podbean, whatever suits you. So please download, follow, subscribe, like, rate us.
Ring
highly.
that bell.
Yeah, so
Share with your friends.
Yeah, share
Are we
with your
coming
friends.
to DVD or CD?
No, we're coming to HD.
We're coming to your
DVD.
house.
Oh,
all right, guys.
Sounds
Goodbye.
Bye.
peace.
Deuces.
Yep, 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 yep.
Yep, yep, yep.